I'll say the most common question I get from people I meet in real life is, "Oh, well, when the football season's over, things must slow down for you, or do they slow down for you?" Yeah, it's not the case. It is not the case. When you hit the off season, especially right after the season, it's like the busiest time in the job of a. I mean, Kyle, I would call us recruiting writers, but as you know, we do a lot more than that. We're covering, the coaching moves, roster management, all sorts of things. So we're definitely going to be talking about some of this stuff in today's YouTube live show. Really appreciate everyone who's watching live, watching back, listening to the podcast. Really looking forward to today's show. And Kyle, you doing well, my friend?
Yeah, I wish you would give that sentiment to all my friends and family members because it's like I don't think the people that don't work in this business and cover college football and especially recruiting, like don't really understand. It's like right now, it's so busy, especially for you and I
Yeah.
producing our recruiting magazine for Blue and Gold. We're just
Oh,
like burning the candles at both ends ever since the national championship game ended. It's been busy, but I know we both love what we do, so it doesn't ever feel like work.
yeah. One of my sob stories, I know you guys are going to cry me a river, is people just my family and friends just have a really hard time grasping what I do. Like, I still don't know if my mom knows what I do for a living, and I've been doing this for almost 12 years. I think 12 years in March or April. And I don't know. Does she still think I work for Notre Dame? Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, oh, you work for Notre Dame. I'm like, nope. Do not. It's a hard thing for people to grasp. But anyways, folks, hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe. Do you get that, Kyle? By the way, do you
Yeah,
ever?
my mom tells everyone I work for Notre Dame, and it's just not how it works.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I wish maybe we would even make more money if we did, but we don't.
It's
Uh,
the easiest way to say it if you're not in this position,
yeah,
you work for something. But when I tell people what I do, I always try to like talk about how like there's TV reporters, like that's the most
yeah.
I don't know,
No,
logical thing
100%.
to kind of
Yeah,
compare it to. Like, yeah, you know how there's TV reporters, like yeah, that's what we do, except it's just covering Notre Dame, and obviously we write. So
yep, yep. I say the same thing. I'll say like, yeah, ESPN covers a team. Like, yeah, I use the same example, and yeah, and it's a mostly remote job where we do some travel, and Kyle and I both get up to South Bend at various times of the year. Kyle, obviously, a good bit more than me. But I am looking forward to getting to South Bend probably more this year than I have in years past. But anyways, folks, hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And of course, blueandgold.com is your home for all things Notre Dame Fighting Irish football and recruiting coverage, as well as basketball. Our guys do a great job there. Covering the men's and women's programs. So blueandgold.com, definitely check it out. So, Kyle, I want to start the show looking back at last week's junior day. And I want to throw out there real quick. Do you remember that segment we did last week talking about like which position coaches leaving would have the biggest impact? Kyle, do you remember that? I made it, Kyle nodded, by the way, podcast audience. I made it clear I was talking about assistant coaches because that's when I had first, like right before we went live, is when I first started hearing rumblings about Chad Bowden potentially leaving for USC. And I quite honestly did not believe it. And then so I was like, of the assistant coaches, the 10 on-field coaches, because I didn't want to say anyone because Bowden leaving does have an impact. Now, some of you watching, listening, whatever the case may be, you're like, well, what about the new GM role? James Blanchard, blueandgold.com. Pete Nakos did a really, or has done a really good job keeping us up to date on that. And he had an update on our Loose Emoji message board on Friday morning. So you can see that over on the board again. So we're not really going to dive into the GM thing today, but James Blanchard from Texas Tech is definitely the number one guy for Marcus Freeman and company, and we'll see what happens from here. We'll leave it at that. But Otherwise, Kyle, first topic is looking back at that junior day. 18 prospects visited, at least confirmed, all of them in the 2026 class. Kyle, we'll kind of bounce back and forth here in terms of your biggest. We'll both give one take, or we'll both give two takeaways. I'll throw it over to you first, and then I'll go. So, give me one, Kyle. Big takeaway from junior day last weekend.
Yeah, the big thing for me is I know you caught up with Lato, Texas High, four-star wide receiver Caden Finley, and it sounded like he had another great trip to Notre Dame. He's visited Notre Dame. I don't know if it's the most of any other school. I know he's been to Texas quite a bit, but it seems like things are just progressing pretty well there with Finley and the Irish. He was on campus, I think, for the Louisville game last year,
Yep.
and has been to Notre Dame multiple times. And you know, the when we cover recruiting, there's like certain things I look for, in terms of like projecting the way or the potential for guys to end up in Notre Dame's class. And kind of how I look at it is, if they start making it to campus on a regular basis, especially for some of the team's major recruiting events, that's usually a good indication of where Notre Dame stands for those players. And I think specifically in the winter is a time to really put your alarms up is when kids really get to Notre Dame in January, because there's nothing going on. Like at least in the summer when they have the grill and chill, like it's summer, the kids are off school. They're outside. There's a lot of games. Notre Dame's gearing up for the season. In January, it's a lot different. And I know for a lot of these recruits and their families, getting to South Bend in the winter, it's not the easiest with flight delays, and that I know weather has been an issue the last couple of years. But yeah, I guess I've combined a couple different takeaways here into one thought. But just circling back to Caden Finley, I just find his recruitment fascinating because I don't know if you were in the same camp as me, Mike, but I kind of felt like this was Texas's recruitment to lose for Finley being down there. I know he's been there a number of times, and his father is Jermichael Finley, former Texas tight end who played for the Green Bay Packers. So that was something I thought would work in the Longhorns' favor, being that he's down based in the Lone Star State. His dad went to Texas, but also Notre Dame continues to recruit these NFL legacy prospects exceptionally well. Pretty much if there's a son of a former NFL player out there playing high school football, there's a good chance that Notre Dame's recruiting them, and even a better chance that they end up at Notre Dame. And can you imagine like what this would have looked like last week, Mike? It's my understanding Devin Fitzgerald from Phoenix Brophy Prep was on campus yesterday. Last weekend. He's a 2026 class wide receiver, and the son of Larry Fitzgerald. Then Notre Dame has Thomas Davis Jr. committed, whose father is Thomas Davis Sr., longtime Panthers player. My understanding is that the elder Davis and Fitzgerald weren't actually on campus last weekend. I'm pretty sure Finley was. But it's just those types of correlations that, kind of keep me entertained and focused, and
So,
how potentially work out Notre Dame's favor.
so what the hell is the take here, Kyle?
Yeah, I
The
know.
takeaway?
I talked in a bunch of circles. Holy smokes!
No,
Um,
I wouldn't say circles. I would say
no,
three different points.
basically, just summarizing is that I
The
think
emergence of Caden Finley.
like him as a target, Notre Dame picking up steam and momentum with him. And also the other point of that is kind of what this means for wide receiver recruiting, because I think there's some other guys that we feel like right now are Notre Dame's in pretty good shape with. So yeah, just finding it fascinating that Finley keeps getting up to campus, and that Notre Dame is building some momentum there.
Okay. Um, my first takeaway from looking at this recruiting weekend, and then again for folks watching on YouTube, we'll pull up the visitor list again, would be no Chad Bowden. The show goes on. That was kind of my thought. It's like the day before junior day, he goes and you have some big time targets. And when you look at past junior days, like this is a weekend that nets commitments. Like Kyle kind of talked about there in one of his many points was like if you visit for junior day, you are showing um, big interest in the Fighting Irish. And um, it's mainly for top targets. It's like you have a mix of some guys who you're interested in but have an offer to get your commits, but then otherwise it is top of the board 2026 targets. And these guys made it to campus, and no Chad Bowden, but there was no problem. And I will add, and I put this in a Lucky Charms article last night, Kyle, I don't know if you saw it, but when I was talking to these recruits about their visits, and maybe you asked this as well, but I was like, as someone like Chad Bowden leaving, like, how much of an impact was he in your recruitment? And he was definitely involved with some of the big targets on the 2026 board, like Thomas Davis Jr. I would throw in there, Samote Katawanga, a target out in California, as well as Trent Mosley. Now, Jed's going to be, of course, recruiting those guys at USC, but and talking to some of the recruits, it was like, no, more from the recruiting office. It was Carter Almond and Caleb Davis. Like, what I was told is that this past weekend for junior day is when Chad would have turned his attention from 2025 and NIL roster management stuff and transfer portal to the 2026 class. So him leaving from a structural standpoint is a whole different discussion of the impact. But in terms of like in a vacuum, looking at the 2026 class, Chad wasn't really involved with a ton of those guys yet. Like a majority of your targets, Chad wasn't there yet. It was more of Caleb and Carter from the recruiting office standpoint. So I thought that was interesting, Kyle, and I'll let you have if you have any thoughts on that. I'll let you talk about that in a moment. But first, we're going to hear from our sponsors over at Prize Picks, and I have to admit, testing my skills on Prize Picks, not just in football season, it is all year long because you can play NHL, soccer, golf. Yes, golf, tennis, MMA, some video games, darts. If you want to play daily fantasy on darts, you certainly can do that. And I am looking forward to playing NFL, and you have a free square with Patrick Mahomes with more than just a single yard. You pair that with something else that is correct, and there you go. You're winning some cash. So definitely check out Prize Picks. You've got the skills. You can turn $10 into 1,000 with just a few taps. Select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. Make sure you download the Prize Picks app or head to prizepicks.com. You got to use the code BGI. That lets Prize Picks know that we sent you. Use the promo code BGI and receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. Prizepicks.com. All right, Kyle, I'll throw it back over to you. Any thoughts on my my takeaway, which I think was a little more on one point? Just giving you a hard time, buddy.
No, a little more straightforward than mine, but I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't even think about that. But that was very evident when I was on campus on Saturday, just observing the recruits and their arrivals. Did not feel like they skipped a beat at all. And in talking to a lot of the recruits after their visits, it's my understanding that Chad Bowden's departure wasn't even discussed. They didn't even bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was no discussion about it. So Notre Dame quickly turned the page there, and obviously Bowden's going to be recruiting against Notre Dame this now. So we're in for some
it's gonna be fun.
pretty exciting Notre Dame USU recruiting battles. But one more takeaway from me from junior day is, if you can't tell, Mike, I usually kind of go outside the lines and off the beaten path on some of my takeaways for this sort of stuff. But I found the new offers interesting, especially the one to Evan Goodwin, the Arkansas offensive tackle, highly recruited guy. And the reason I was, kind of interested in what they decided to do there is because they have the 3 interior offensive linemen committed in Sullivan Garvin, Ben Nichols, and then Tyler Merrill, who announced in favor of Notre Dame yesterday. Those guys all projected to play guard. It's my understanding that they're talking with Notre Dame offensive line coach Joe Rudolph is talking with Garvin about playing center. And I was under the impression that this cycle was going to be pretty guard centric, interior offensive line centric, and it has been after what Notre Dame landed in the 25 cycle with 3 premier offensive tackle recruits. But now they're looks like they're looking for one. Mike, you know a little bit more the details on how they want the offensive line class to finish out. But yeah, I don't know if that was a guy I was necessarily expecting to get an offer.
Sure.
But I know he camped at Notre Dame last summer, and I know Notre Dame, especially for the offensive linemen, they love the fact that those guys come to camp and to get in-person evaluations. That was part of the reason why they went so hard after specifically Garvin and Nichols, because they loved their on-field in-person evaluations of them when camping with Rudolph. I think Merill might have camped there as well. So yeah, it's offensive line recruiting. I'm going to be interested to see how that finishes, because not only are they recruiting Goodwin, but they're still recruiting a lot of other guys. I mean, they were out to see 3 different offensive linemen this week. Joe Rudolph stopped by high school in Texas to see Felix Arrojo, who reported a Notre Dame offer. Marcus Freeman was in North Carolina to offer Ekene Boko, one of the premier offensive tackles in the class. Obviously, Goodwin picked up his offer last Saturday. And then Rudolph was up in Michigan on Thursday night recruiting one of the top remaining interior offensive linemen in the class, and Gregory Patrick, even though they have 3 linemen committed on the interior. So, yeah, pretty interested to see how things shake out there. And I think that if Notre Dame puts the pedal to the metal on Goodwin, that he would absolutely jump at the opportunity to join Notre Dame.
Good rundown there from Kyle, and I'll add that I did write this article that I think was pretty timely. What's next for Notre Dame O-line recruiting, where I kind of break down the numbers and maybe what to expect a little bit moving forward. So check it out there. My second takeaway is also on the O-line, and it's in talking to sources how well the O-line group meshes together and how important that is. Like, they're not recruiting guys to join that 2026 O-line class that they don't feel like would fit personality-wise with not only just the guys in the roster, right? Because the O-line room, like the culture is so important, but with the 26 class specifically, like Kyle, that Sullivan Garvin and Ben Nichols are like best buddies. We both know that they got to South Bend Friday, and I'm pretty sure their families got dinner together. Just outside of campus Friday night. So very close. And Tyler Merill, I was told, fit extremely well, with those 2 guys. And, whoever joins them next, because, Notre Dame's got 3 commits. And as Kyle laid out, and I detailed in the article, they're going to get more. So they're going to be players that fit this group. And this actually segues really great, Kyle, into our next segment of this show, and that is talking about Tyler Merill and this new commitment for Notre Dame, the nation's number 82 overall player, number 5 interior offensive lineman, according to the 2026 On3 industry ranking, number 2 player from Pennsylvania, committed to Notre Dame over Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, A&M, Wisconsin. Long list of scholarship offers for this massive 6'5", 330-pound offensive lineman from Mechanicsburg, PA, hometown of one of Notre Dame's most famous fans, Shane Gillis, by the way. So Kyle, I did a video talking about this news with does this like slide over, Kyle? Do you know how this works? This video thing? Why can't I? Anyways.
I like to say I'm the On3 database guy, but some of these new changes I'm still getting accustomed to.
All right, I'll pull that up for his film. But anyways, I talked about, this commitment with with Tim Hyde in a video. So I'll just kind of give you the floor to talk about Tyler Merrill, and what this commitment means in your opinion.
I'm glad you asked because I didn't really get to articulate this on the message board or in my writing. I need to kind of put my thoughts together completely, and I think I'm almost there. But I did not expect Tyler Merrill to end up at Notre Dame. I know you put that prediction in August, and as I mentioned earlier in the show, like you say, follow the visits. And Tyler Merrill did not visit Notre Dame last season. He made it to Michigan though, which it was like 7 hour drive from where he lives. He made it to
Was
Clemson.
Michigan even a finalist?
No, which that was a big surprise for me because I thought going into Merrill's junior day visit. Now, granted, I've been a little bit more out of the loop of recruiting than you after covering the national championship run closely with just being down there and doing a lot of reporting from that aspect. So maybe I was reading this wrong, but I had just felt that maybe Michigan and Penn State were two of the leaders here for Merrill. I know he's been to Penn State like almost a dozen times. He's from Pennsylvania. Say what you want about James Franklin, but there's nothing he does better than keeping the best recruits in Pennsylvania, in the state, to play for Penn State. And I just saw that. I felt that was the way things were going with Tyler Merrill. I didn't really see him going to Notre Dame after skipping out on a game day visit this past season. But I was obviously wrong there. I underestimated his relationships with offensive line coach Joe Rudolph, who's a Pennsylvania native. I know there was a couple of recruiting staffers at Notre Dame, like Caleb Davis and Carter Allman, who had a role in this recruitment. I know, specifically Merrill's relationship with Davis goes back to before he even had a Notre Dame offer. Notre Dame offered him on Pot of Gold Day last March, about 10 months ago, but Davis's relationship with Merill probably spanned over 16 months. So the relationships at Notre Dame were too strong, and he pointed that out to me when him and I were chatting about his decision. Was that it was just he felt a real connection at Notre Dame with the coaching staff, but also Mike, as you mentioned, with the other offensive linemen. So great pickup for Notre Dame. He's a top 100 recruit. He is every bit of 6'5", 330 pounds.
Have you seen him before in person?
Yeah, not watch him play, but I've seen him at Notre Dame twice now. He's huge, man. He is a scary guy.
That's a good term. I feel like
I would not mess with like he is probably 15 or 16 years old, but I would not want to fight Tyler Merrill. If there's a chance, Mike, if you go to Twitter and just search his name and look at his some of the local TV stations out his way were at his high school for the commitment, and they had video of him, making his announcement. The dude is huge. If you look how big his upper body and like his, I don't know, his arms and all his chest and all that are, like he looks like he's college ready right now.
There he is.
Dude.
Announced it with On3, which is really cool, by the way. If you guys missed that, you can find it on the On3 Recruits page. I'm planning on I got the file of the video, so I'm planning on kind of editing it up a little bit, cut out some of the dead parts, and then putting it on our YouTube channel tomorrow. Man, we've been I feel like there was a lull of about 5 days late last week to early this week where we weren't publishing as much YouTube content, and then it was Wednesday night with Tim, Thursday night with Goolsby, the Merill commit video. We got this, so we're starting to pick it back up a little bit. Kyle, how do you think I look, man? You like this shirt? You still a little jealous you didn't get one?
It's funny you say that because today I was trying to figure out what I was going to wear on YouTube, and I was like, Mike's got it so easy because he's got all this free gear, and he can just throw that stuff on and promote it, and I know you get to wear it outside the YouTube show too. So I was like, all right, well, I was thinking to myself, how can I get some of this wardrobe?
I mean, it's Roback and Kyle. We'll have to we'll hook you up, folks, and or we'll hook you up, Kyle. And for folks watching or listening, use the promo code Blue Gold 20 for a generous 20% off all new customers. RHOBACK.com. 20% off performance polos, shorts, and more with code Blue Gold 20. Absolutely love Roback. I wore the Notre Dame Stadium polo last night. Wearing this Fighting Irish one right now. I wore this hoodie Wednesday night with Tim. So my 3 Roback items. No, I actually have the white quarter zip, which I think is no longer being sold. I got that one too. Absolutely love Roback. So that's like 4 days in a row I've been wearing this stuff. And I actually got a text from my buddy Mason Plummer. Some of you guys might know Mason. He texted me and he said, just watch your Merill video. I see you're with Roback. And he said, such good quality, expensive, but I don't care. You know, I mean, I'm reading the text. Like, this is real stuff, folks. And that was not even a hashtag ad by Mr. Plummer. Roback is incredible. Check out their licensed game day collection. I mean, Roback is completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable active wear. And like, this is something like, I'm very much a person. Give me a baggy t-shirt and some shorts, and that's what I'm wearing around the house. I am all about comfort. But I will wear this because this shirt is so comfortable. I'll probably work the rest of the day just with this on, just around the house, and then you look great when you go out as well. Like Roback, incredible, folks, and it's also been leading the NIL charge, having signed past partnerships with Notre Dame players like Audric Estime, Kyle Hamilton, Michael Mayer, and now throw in past Notre Dame players Riley Leonard and Ben Morrison, and there will certainly be more to come. Again, folks, promo code Blue Gold 20. It's going to be more expensive than going down to Walmart and buying something, but this is quality stuff that looks fantastic. You feel great wearing it. Roback.com. Check it out. All right, Kyle. Notre Dame's been on the road all week, and this is the first time in January that the assistant coaching staff and Marcus Freeman's been out on the road because Notre Dame was vying for a national championship game. Could you imagine the outrage if Notre Dame and the coaching staff was out on the road while they were prepping for a title game? So I wanted to both give us an opportunity to talk about just one, in your opinion, the most important stop the staff has made out on the road recruiting this week. What do you got?
Can I pick one that they are making?
Like today?
Yeah.
Oh, you got Joey O'Brien?
No, I'm actually really going off the beaten path here, as I usually do. And I'm
Okay.
going with Al Washington to go see USC
Ooh.
commit Braden Jones, who you and I both felt pretty strongly was a Notre Dame lead for the early part of his recruitment. I'm told he almost committed to Notre Dame back in the spring. We felt this was Notre Dame's recruitment to lose, and he committed to USC out of nowhere. I mean,
It was a
absolutely
surprise.
out of nowhere. I spent about a half hour with Braden Jones at Chicago Mount Carmel, I think 7 to 10 days before his commitment to USC. We were talking about some of his favorites. USC was in the picture. We talked a lot about Notre Dame, how great of a job they were doing in his recruitment. Pretty sure Braden Jones was wearing all Notre Dame stuff when I came to visit him. And there is no indication whatsoever that he was going to commit to USC. And as we've seen a few times lately, at least under the Lincoln Riley regime, is that when some of these recruits get out to campus and experience LA for the first time, they're sold. I mean, a lot of those recruits have ended up flipping out of USC's class. And if you would have asked me about 3 months ago or in the weeks after Braden Jones's commitment, how I felt about him potentially ending up at Notre Dame, I would have felt like a flip was there was a pretty good chance at it. But now with Chad Bowden at USC and especially Dre Brown,
Sure.
who was on Notre Dame's recruiting staff until I think about March or April last year, Dre Brown played a big time role in Braden Jones's recruitment before Brown went down to Illinois, and now Dre Brown's going to be at USC. So this is going to be one that's become a lot more challenging for Notre Dame to flip. They have to continue to recruit Chicago and succeed with signing some of those top prospects out there. Braden Jones is a great player. I've seen him in person a couple times perform. He's exactly the type of defensive lineman that Notre Dame doesn't have and the guy that they need. One of those bigger body, strong side defensive ends, the guys that they've had to go in the portal to get, like the Javante Jean Baptiste and RJ Obens. Braden Jones is that type of guy. And it's not only Braden Jones at Mount Carmel. There are several other very talented recruits coming up through the pipeline. I know Notre Dame hosted another one, and Joey Quinn on campus, who's getting a lot of Big Ten interest and offers from Power 4 programs. Notre Dame's evaluating him. I know they have a stud interior defensive lineman in, I think, 28 class or 27. He's going to be a national recruit, a 5-star. They got a couple wide receivers. So, obviously the Notre Dame stop to see Braden Jones today is very important for that recruitment, but also just the health of Notre Dame's relationship with one of the top high school football programs in the Midwest.
Good stuff, Kyle. Yeah. The Dre Brown mention was a good one. I didn't even kind of put that together. Yeah, Notre Dame's still recruiting him. Like, I feel like we haven't heard his name in a while. Like when he committed to USC, sources told me and you that, like, all right, Notre Dame's going to keep recruiting him. We hadn't heard his name in months, though. I think we committed around October, November, something like that. So it's been a while. We haven't really heard much about him. The other thing, as you were talking, I was like, man, Notre Dame's about to get a new GM who's going to lead / oversee the recruiting department. Like, you're not going to have an overhaul with the 26 board, but I was just thinking, like, man, it's going to be interesting to see if, like, whoever the new person is, like, how they handle that. And if it's not Blanchard, let's say they go to the NFL and get someone without a recruiting background, is it more of someone else really runs recruiting, like the day-to-day ops of it, and then your new GM is more like scouting for that, and then does more of a NFL style with, the portal and roster management. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's not a slam dunk that it's going to be Blanchard. So fascinated to see. My top visits for today or for this week is, so Kyle kind of just focused in on the recruit, but I want to just talk about like the stop, because Al Washington is going to Braden Jones' school today. Crap, I had the tweet pulled up. I'm going to go to your page, Kyle. Marcus Freeman, and was it? It was definitely Al Washington, and it may have been a couple of others, but the staff was in North Carolina yesterday. And let's see, Mike Mickens was there as well, and they stopped in at South Garner, North Carolina high school, South Garner High School in Garner, North Carolina. So folks watching on YouTube, you got Marcus Freeman's all the way on the left. This is Ebenezer Utade. I really apologize for mispronouncing that last name. He is a big-time edge prospect. He's more of a Viper guy. Ranked as a 3-star right now. He's going to explode and be a big-time 4-star prospect in just a matter of time. And you have Kenny Ogboko, who is a long-time Notre Dame target. Notre Dame recruited his brother Nnamdi Ogboko back in the 2024 class. So Notre Dame's known about Kenny since Nnamdi, his older brother, visited for the Ohio State game in 23. And then they offered him for Pot of Gold Day last year. And they are hot after him. Now, he hasn't been to campus since his brother's official visit. He was almost in South Bend this past weekend. Didn't work out. He had a basketball in conflict, but Notre Dame really wants Ogboko. And then you have Al Washington and Mike Mickens rounding out this picture here. So this, for me, this is like, you can make an argument that South Garner High School, North Carolina, is the most important high school for Notre Dame in this class. Like there's definitely others that you make a case for, but between like what are the most important positions on a football field? Right? The quarterback, and then you want to protect your quarterback and get to the other team's quarterback. Well, there's not a quarterback here that Notre Dame's recruiting, but you have a big time edge rusher in Ebenezer, who is emerged, and he got his offer this past weekend, but Notre Dame's been recruiting him for several months. Really was just a matter of time before he got his offer. There's an academic thing that kind of needed to be, sorted, and then that did. So he got his offer while on campus, and he's a top of the board edge rusher. And then with Boko, a top 100 overall player, number 6 offensive tackle specifically in the country. I think Notre Dame's probably just on the outside looking in for him right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Irish get him on campus for an official visit this summer if he's not able to make it up for the spring. Hopefully it's both. But I think that Notre Dame's got, a puncher's chance with Boko, especially if they get him on campus for an official. So I would say that Marcus Freeman's visit to see those two players hugely important, Kyle.
Yeah, if I could comment on what you said about the academic situation, I think with UTAD, because I think it's important to note we don't really talk about this a whole lot, but I think sometimes when we say, and I don't know if this is the case with him, but sometimes when we say like there's an academic hurdle that Notre Dame needs to overcome with a recruit, I think that comes as a bad connotation because people often think like some of these guys aren't a good student or they have bad grades or they got to improve their grades. It is like sometimes just as simple as like they have
Need
to
to
just
take a
make
math
sure.
class. Yeah.
Exactly. Like there's a specific just like when you apply to most colleges and get accepted and credits and all that transfer over and graduation requirements. Like it's like I think CJ Carr had to take like algebra 2 or something. I don't know, for example, but there's sometimes it's just as easy as making sure you're taking the right courses in high school to make sure you get into Notre Dame. So just want to mention that, but summarizing our picks there, you notice how we both said the defensive line? We are in a position right now with Notre Dame D-line and D-line recruiting, D-line development, where we're still kind of waiting for some of the guys that have been recruited in the Marcus Freeman era to break through. I know Bryce Young was the guy last year that he's going to be a 3-year player for Notre Dame, potential All-American first-round pick, has high hopes. He was a little bit of a unique circumstance because his father, Bryant Young, went to Notre Dame. I know there's a guy that I'm really excited about, Logan Thomas, who I think is going to make a big leap from year 1 to year 2 at Viper. But some of the other defensive linemen that have signed with Notre Dame in the Freeman era, Devin Houston, Armel Mukam, Brendan Vernon, Cole Mullins was hurt last year, true freshman. I know there was some buzz about Sean Sevillano. Like all those types of guys, like they really have not taken the next step. That's why Notre Dame's had to go to the portal to supplement their needs on the D line. So they've got some solid additions up front there, but I think we're just looking for some improvement. And the one way you can do it is by landing some of the top recruits at the position of the class. And I think actually Notre Dame did that in 25 with the Christopher Burgess recruitment and getting him to sign. And there's some others on the D line I'm really excited about. But yeah, I just want to mention that I found it pretty interesting that we both selected D lineman for our pick.
I like it. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. For folks watching on YouTube, sometimes I'll get a comment after the shows and people are like, Mike, you moved the screen too fast. I can't read it. Well, pause the damn video. If there's something on the screen and you want to read it all, just pause the damn video. It's not that difficult. So I say that because this on the screen, as we kind of scroll through, and you can also just read this article Kyle Kelly wrote. It's a free article. So where Notre Dame commits slot in the latest On3 rankings update. So that final 2025 rankings update from On3 came out. So Kyle, I just want to spend a few minutes on this. Will Black kept his 5-star rating, no change. I mean, he dropped a couple spots in the national rankings, but no change positionally. And so yeah, he's a 5-star prospect. I mean, it's you know, Rivals ranked him as a 5-star, ESPN 24/7 top 100, but not a 5-star. So he ends up as a 5-star industry ranking, which I think per the industry ranking alone, Notre Dame's first 5-star in a while, right?
Yeah, I don't think they've had a 5-star. I know we've talked about Jalen Sneed was
Just outside, yeah.
yeah, because there's a couple of reclassifications. But in terms of the industry ranking, last time they had a 5-star, I don't want to say it was Jalen Smith in 2013,
Dude.
but
But so there's the industry ranking, which takes into account all of the websites, right? But then you have the individual On3 rankings, and I tweeted this out. Notre Dame has On3 launched in 2021, but the industry ranking goes back farther. It just doesn't include On3, obviously, but it still will have rivals 24/7 ESPN. Will Black, Gerby Lambert, Charles Jagasaw, Jalen Sneed, Emil Wagner, and Prince Cauli. So that's 6 5-star recruits for Notre Dame since the 2021 recruiting class. So they do sign 5-stars. It's just been so far with On3, at least, on the offensive line linebackers. And you mentioned Jalen Smith. There's another linebacker. And so far, I mean, Prince Cauli obviously didn't work out. But Wagner, I mean, he was a stud in his first year starting. Jalen Sneed, quite, I wouldn't say has lived up to a 5-star billing, but certainly is a stud. And, we'll see how he does this year. Jagasaw, that looks like a great eval. Gerby Lambert obviously hasn't played, but, think the world of him as well as Will Black. So just wanted to mention that real quick. But yeah, Kyle, any other thoughts? Chris Burgess obviously had a huge jump, which was expected after how well he looked, at the All-American Bowl. But any other thoughts with these rankings updates?
so I did check in the last time. This is crazy to even think about with the amount of success that Notre Dame has had, playing in major bowl games, double-digit win seasons, playing in national championships. You mentioned the guys that have been 5-stars in On3's ratings, but in the On3 industry ranking specifically, which factors in the ratings and rankings of On3, 24/7 Rivals, and ESPN, their last industry ranking 5-star was indeed Jalen Smith out of Fort Wayne in 2013. He was a 5-star plus, which means the 4 primary recruiting media services I just mentioned all had him as a 5-star. In the case of classes in 2021 and before, 2020 and before, that doesn't factor in On3 because On3 was founded in 2021. That's when the rankings began, or when On3 started applying rankings to recruits. So you mentioned Black. He's a top 5 player, Notre Dame's first top 5 player since Jalen Smith as well. And I know I touched on Burgess. His climb was pretty remarkable because I think he was a guy that, some of the like Charles Power and like Cody Belair, I'm not sure they like knew exactly what to do with because he was playing middle linebacker during his senior season. But then Christopher Burgess goes down to San Antonio at the All-American Bowl, lights it up on the defensive line, makes a big climb in the rankings. I don't know if there are many other guys that made as big of a jump as Burgess into the on 300. Now ranking as top 75 overall recruit in the class. But I'm glad you're scrolling down there to the perfect talking point I have about Elijah Burris because he was one you and I harped on for a while. That was
Still think he should be a 4-star. He's just
definitely underrated. Look at the climb he made. If you go back, I think he rose up like over 60 spots
69.
positionally. Yeah, wide receiver. Nice. So that's one I think was long overdue. And how about his teammate at Wayne, New Jersey, DePaul Catholic, Nolan James Jr.? When he committed, I wrote in my 5 thoughts column, and I don't really like to criticize the rankings in scouting too much because, like, that's not my talent. Those guys do an exceptional job, all things considered, projecting high schoolers and how they, look in terms of honestly the NFL because that's the way that the rankings are compiled is they project these guys as NFL players essentially. But I mean, Obviously, college is factored in as well. So they have an extremely hard job. But still, when Nolan James committed, he was like, I don't know, like 70th running back in the
Yeah.
country. He was like way down in the rankings. And I went out to his high school and saw him in November, and I saw him, and I was like, this is wrong. Like, this ranking is just off. I don't know if it was a circumstance where he was committed to Boston College and some of the recruiting services just didn't get a good evaluation of him. But yeah, I knew that he was due for a major bump. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't even expect him to get bumped up this high. I think Nolan James's ranking is going to be higher than what Aeneas Williams finished with, at least in the on three rankings
Yeah, and I think Aeneas was
last
a
cycle.
3. Yeah, I think he was a 3-star.
So I know Aeneas, kind of opposite to Nolan James. Aeneas was a recruit who I think started out as a highly ranked guy,
Never mind, he was a
but
4-star by on 3.
yeah, and yeah, Aeneas dropped down a little bit. He was in the on 300 at one point,
Yeah.
meaning that he was a top 300 recruit for on three. And on three likes Nolan James better, which
Yeah.
I
Look at
mean, if you're Notre Dame, you're going to take that all day because Aeneas Williams had a really good freshman season, especially in the playoff. So I was really excited about seeing James bumped up. And one last thought, Mike, how about Brandon Logan, another on three
mhm.
favorite? Logan's in the on 300. Remarkable to think that this was a guy that showed up in a white jersey at the Irish Invasion camp. I don't know if I think Notre Dame was scouting him, but with the defensive back situation, I didn't know if there was a spot for him. But he performed so well in camp that he was a must-take guy, and now on three has him as one of the best defensive backs in the class, and it's probably pretty comparable to Ivan Taylor, who Logan ultimately replaced in the 25 class. So overall, all things considered, when Notre Dame fans like to always complain about how the rankings favor or lack thereof, it's signees and commits. I think this was a pretty good update, all things considered.
Well, I don't really know what else to add to that, because you talked about all the guys I was gonna talk about. Yeah, Logan was
Gosh.
someone who Notre Dame is very excited about, and I before the rankings were, came out as official, I texted Notre Dame sources, said, "Hey, Logan is gonna be, ranked inside our national rankings and as a 4-star player," and about damn time is the text I got. So yeah, Logan, James, yeah, Elijah Burris, very, very nice to see. I thought Ko Kia should have gotten bumped to a 4-star. I think he actually dropped a little bit, but we'll see. You mentioned James and Aeneas. So James here, according to the industry ranking, so there is all these rankings. It gets kind of confusing when you talk about who a 5-star. Well, what is a 5-star? Is it someone who ranked as a 5-star at one time in their recruitment by any service? Is it how they finished? Because people will still say, well, Cam Williams is a 5-star. Just last night on the show, well, on 3 ranked Cam Williams 5-star. I think at one point they did, but he didn't finish as one. So it's like, well, and then which service do you use? Like, is it just according to your favorite website, or is it for what we do at Blue and Gold? When we write articles, we reference the industry ranking because it's just a easy thing to do. It's more unbiased in terms of, well, on 3 really likes this kid. It's just a good average, right? Or on 3 doesn't or does like this kid compared to everyone else. It's just a good way to balance it out. Anyways, James, number 236 overall player, number 15 running back. Aeneas, 239 overall, 17 running back. Very similar, and their games are similar as well. I think Aeneas and Kyron have a lot of similarities, and Nolan James has similarities to both. So I do think that is interesting. Folks, hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content. Talked about a lot of good stuff in today's Notre Dame recruiting update. Thought this was one of our better ones in a while as well. So if you're just tuning in live, rewind, watch it back. You missed a lot of good stuff. For folks listening via podcast, really appreciate you guys for tuning in this week. Please leave us a 5-star review and fill out why you're leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm Mike Singer, and that's Kyle Kelly with me for today's Notre Dame recruiting update. Really appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week, and yeah, catch you next time.